Hello everyone and welcome into our special exclusive Class of 2020 Hall of Fame induction announcement show. My name is Brian Dunn and with me in studio is our Norwood Hall of Fame President, Brian McDonough. Brian, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So before we get into the induction class, this is a unique opportunity because, we sort of get to, get some in-depth ideas on what exactly is the Hall of Fame. Obviously, every major sports entity has some sort of Hall of Fame to honor the great athletes that have come before us. So can you just describe in your own words what the Norwood High Sports Hall of Fame is?
Sure, yeah, well thanks, and thank you Norwood Community Media for having me here to be able to speak about this. But the Norwood High Hall of Fame it was in existence quite a while back, and then there was a hiatus where things had kind of dropped off. And 2007 we reestablished it and we energized with a group of people from the community who wanted to see this organization come back and start recognizing some of the many athletes that have come, through Norwood High School. So in 2007, we started back up again. And the great thing about the Hall of Fame committee, it's open to anybody. Anybody who's interested in being involved is welcome to join the committee. We've got a group of probably 15 to 20 residents. Nice part is they're from all over, age-wise, demographics, male and female. So it's a nice mix of people, former coaches, present teachers who are involved on that. And then within that, we have a selection committee. And the selection committee is a group of 7 individuals who, review the resumes more or less, or the bios, or the nominations. And if I can say one thing here, Brian, one of the big things that we look for is the people to nominate athletes. The selection committee, the group of 7, can't nominate, and we can't just pick somebody. We need somebody to do the actual nomination. So a lot of times people will ask us, well, how did people get into the Hall of Fame? Well, the first and foremost is to nominate somebody, and they can download the form at the Norwood High Athletic website, or they can send a letter to the athletic director here at Norwood High School. Things that we look for, some minimum requirements is that if they're an athlete, they have been out of school for 10 years. If they're a coach, they have to have been out for 7 years. And then within the selection committee, what we look for, and right now we probably have 65 or 70 nominations that are on file. Once somebody is nominated, their name stays on file until they possibly inducted, if that happens. And I will say not everybody who gets nominated gets inducted. The selection committee works on that and comes up with kind of a criteria that we look at. And it's very easy in some ways for individual sports like track and wrestling and swimming, where an athlete has set themselves above the rest. And that's typically if they were a state champion in a single sport type of thing, like they say track or wrestling. And we've had quite a few track athletes, and we've had quite a few wrestlers that have got in. Team sports, it's a little more difficult. With a team, it's a lot of time an individual on a team to be inducted as a part of a team. Chances are they were probably a Globe All-Scholastic, Herald All-Scholastic, Patriot Ledger in the old days, Transcript, Bay State Conference champion, Bay State Conference MVP is something that moves them up quite a bit. So, we really like kind of devour that information and find out what it is, and we have a good group of people who do some of the research to follow up to either yearbooks or go back into the Globe archives if they have it, Herald archives, to find out, in fact, if the information is set forth is correct. Because sometimes people say, oh yeah, geez, I remember the kid, he was an outstanding athlete. Well, in comparison, you don't know until you have some paperwork. So that's one of the big things that helps.
So obviously when you guys have generated, like you said, this has been since '07, so you have a very good pool of athletes to choose from year in and year out. So it seems like the competition each year in terms of who gets inducted is pretty competitive, don't you think?
It is, and this year it was very successful how we did it, but a lot of times what we have found over the last 3 or 4 years, the selection committee basically gets together, and before we meet, we say, okay, choose your top 10, 12, 8 athletes that you feel should be nominated. So then we will get the committee, they do their own individual, and then we throw it together, we create a little spreadsheet. And it's kind of interesting because it really, the cream rises to the top, and the best athletes really kind of get, you can see that like several of the selection committee have picked this athlete or this coach or this team. I should shoot out too about the teams that state champions, they kind of go in, and we've seen that with wrestling teams and track and football teams in 78 and the 2000 state champ teams. They, again, at 10 years, kind of like the athletes as a team, they can go in as well. But it is really neat, yeah. So a lot of times we may, kind of like in any of the other professional Hall of Fames, somebody may get 1 or 2 votes that first year, but were just shy. You know, they kind of move forward into the next year. So even if somebody didn't get in the first time, doesn't mean they won't get in, you know, down the road. And of course, then we have athletes who come out. I'm trying to think of one a couple of years ago, Taylor Ryan, who her first year of eligibility, she was ready. You know, 10 years out, she was a state and New England champ in the hurdles, and you know, again, her first year of eligibility, she was nominated and she was selected. So we do find at certain times that certain classes have been very strong. I know we got a lot of female athletes coming up on their 10-year since graduating from Norwood High, and I can see a few of them coming up. So, but what I really enjoy and I think works out quite well is the committee, the selection committee, pulls together their names. We create the spreadsheet, and then you can pretty quickly find out everybody's on pretty much the same page on that. And if there's a question, then we'll do some back and forth discussion on it.
Right. And obviously, when you guys are deciding who's going to get in, there's meetings that take place, in-person meetings, discussions, what have you. Obviously, we're in a pretty unprecedented time with the COVID-19 pandemic. So how has, you know, that sort of affected you guys, either maybe getting delayed in the process, or have you moved to sort of remote settings and sort of deciding who gets in here?
Yeah, and just a little bit of history, lengthwise, Brian, how we do it. You know, of course, the ceremony takes place the Saturday of Thanksgiving, which will again this year. And shortly after that, first week of January, we start preparing for next year, when we kind of put out a schedule of agendas and meetings and when we're going to meet, and then start the selection process. And typically, we accept nominations right up till the end of April. And our first selection committee meeting is the 1st of May. So this year, and it's worked out quite well. This year, interesting, of course, with COVID-19, we said, okay, do we hold off on this, or do we do it remotely? And we did a Zoom meeting last week with the 7 people on that committee. And again, it worked out tremendous. I asked all the selection committee members to send me their 10 choices. I created a spreadsheet, and it worked out so well that the meeting was done in about 20 minutes because we all had basically the top vote getters. So this year worked out quite well, being remote and being able to do it and bringing everybody's name together. So again, we prefer to be in person. We like to share that information, but with them, but you know, it worked out quite well being able to do it remotely through Zoom.
Well, that's fantastic, and thank you to you and to everybody on the induction committee to band together and get that done in a timely manner. So I won't tease the public any longer. You and I can get right into it here. Sure. So without further ado, I'll let the president introduce the Hall of Fame class of 2020.
The 2020 Norwood High School Athletic Hall of Fame inductees. Really excited to this class. Starting off with Coach Sharon Stye. Sharon had over 30 years of coaching here at Norwood. She is known mostly for field hockey, but she also coached basketball and softball. Taught down at the now Coakley Middle School, junior high at that point. But during her career, Norwood High field hockey was one of the tops in the state, and is still where it is now has a lot to do with the Kathy Shakoi and Sharon Stye. And Sharon Stye had many, many athletes that went on to play college field hockey at some really strong schools, Division I, II, and III. And so Sharon is well deserving and will be going in this class and leading it off as the first coach for the 2020 year.
And I believe Sharon coached Allison Dolliner, who is now the current head coach for the
That's
field hockey
correct.
program.
And the former coach, who's also Allison Parks Penza, who was one of her proteges. So again, I think we saw this when Giles Parker was getting inducted. The great coaches kind of breed great future coaches, and that was true with Giles Parker with all the coaches, female coaches that he had. Coach Sharon Stye has done the same, and it's great to see that. Yeah, their passion is brought on to new coaches, and those coaches then bring on their passion on. And when you get someone like a Coach Stye, they just bring such great qualities to the program. So they had some great mentors, and now those mentors are the coaches themselves and mentoring the new generation. So it's exciting. So then we go through kind of the dates, starting with the old guys, but the old guy is also with me. That's Chucky Hopkins from the class of 1974. I had the good fortune to wrestle with Chucky here at Norwood High. He was a state champ, 134-pound weight class, and Chucky was just tough as nails. He is one of the Norwood's greatest wrestlers, and he now joins the group. Interesting, last year was Ken Sheen was the first state champ, and I believe Chuck was the next one after that, and of course Bruce Gregory went in last year. So Chuck Hopkins, again, class of 1974 state champion wrestler, will be heading in this year. Then class of 1978, graduated with one of my brothers, John Belerna. John was an outstanding baseball player and hockey player. Globe, Herald All-Scholastic, Ledger All-Scholastic. And again, those are the ones I can tell you that it's pretty easy to find out those that have risen to the top within that team sport. Chuck is a state champ. He has the credentials with the paperwork. John has it as a, his paperwork with the Globe and Herald All-Scholastic, Ledger All-Scholastic. Then from the class of 1995, unfortunately posthumously for Mike Pedroli. Mike was a football and baseball player, outstanding baseball player, one of Norwood's greatest, Bay State Conference All-Star MVP. And that in itself is just another criteria that we talk about. You can become a Bay State League All-Star, but when you're the MVP, that means when it was the 12 teams in the league, you were the best player within that league
Right.
sport. So that again is another notch up above. And Herald and Ledger transcript All-Star. Mike went on to play at Bentley, where he played football for a few years and then finished his career as baseball. And again, died tragically, much, much too young. So we're thrilled to be able to induct him. His number is retired at Bentley, so they thought that much of him to be able to do that. So we're thrilled to be able to bring Mike Pedroli into the class of 2020. Then a field hockey player that's going to be joining Sharon Stye, I'm sure we're always kind of nice to be able to bring, when a coach comes in, one of their athletes come in. And from the class of 97, Patty Robinson. Patty also played basketball and softball, but typically we will find most of our Hall of Fame inductees are multi-sport athletes, but really excelled in one or the other. And she excelled in field hockey. She was a Bay State Conference MVP, as I mentioned. Had records set, went on to play at UMass, where she still holds some records as leading assists. So kind of nice that she's going in with Sharon Stye as a field hockey. Then from the class of 2000, Jackie Demlin. Jackie's, softball was really her main sport, as they would say, but two-time Globe All-Scholastic and Herald All-Scholastic. So it's hard to become a Globe All-Scholastic once, but to do it twice is quite an honor. Had a number of records, strikeouts and so forth. Also another one who's in the Wheaton College Hall of Fame. So not only was she outstanding here at Norwood, she also brought that talent to Wheaton College. And then finally, from the class of 2006, I had the good fortune to watch this young man play 3 sports here at Norwood, Mike Young. Mike, football, basketball, and track. Most people remember Mike for football talent. I remember when he was finishing his career, Jack Tolman and I were talking about how many yards he had run during his career. And we guesstimated it was somewhere between Norwood Center and Walpole Center, the amount of miles that he ran based in yards. So outstanding football athlete, just instinctive. You could see him cut holes, and the way he moved, great ability. Also will be joining his grandfather, who's also a member of the Tony Grunovic, who's from the Hall of Fame.
Fantastic.
So, there's an example that runs in the genes.
Right,
And,
right.
So pretty amazing. Again, not also outstanding speed. He was on the one of the relay teams, multi-time winner in the Bay State League. Went on to continue his career at Merrimack. And shout out to Mike as a new dad with a 3-week-old. So it's going to be a nice year for Mike with his new baby and being inducted into this year's.
And I was going to say, when it comes to Mike, obviously we have old footage of Mike's football games, and I have it well recommended that it's amazing looking back what he was able to do with, like you said, his sort of breakaway speed. It was leaps and bounds beyond the rest in terms of from a football. I'm assuming from a track perspective as well, but definitely from a football perspective.
Yes, yeah. No, he was fun to watch, and I was talking to one of his coaches recently, and just said, boy, I can remember, even though he was a running back, if you're going to tackle him, you're going to pay the price, because he put his head down and he was tough as nails, and face mask to face mask, as they say, and just a great kid, and really excited to have him coming in. And he's one of those guys that was a unanimous vote of the committee and right up there, and so it'll be exciting to have him in as well.
Absolutely. So looks like that is the class, right?
That's the class for the 2020. So, I spoke to all the inductees personally this past week. We'll send out a, written response so they have it. Then we'll ask them to give us some feedback. We ask for a bio sheet that they kind of give us information that they have, because theirs has a little bit more. And then we also ask them, which I think is really kind of nice, what was one of your memorable parts about being in high school and playing sports? And it's always neat to see what they recollect. And it may not always, in most cases, it's not about a particular game or score. It's just some of their fellow teammates, the coaches that they had. And so we'll be sending that out and getting the feedback from them. We have a committee that then starts working on a program. Peter McFarland does a great job on that. Shout out to some of our sponsors who help out when we have this ceremony take place, and hopefully COVID will be under control in November. We put on we do our ceremony here at the high school in the auditorium, but before that we put refreshments on in the dining hall that we invite family and friends to come and do small refreshments. And then we do the Hall of Fame induction in the auditorium, but we give all the inductees a Hall of Fame watch. We have a plaque. We put the permanent plaque up at the walking track that's in the gym where they're recognized. So there's some expenses, and so we are very thrilled between Norwood Bank, who always is wonderful with us, Canton Bank, who has made great helping us out with donations. Galooly Funeral Home covers the cost of the program, and we're always looking for sponsors, especially when we start seeing teams come in, because sometimes those expenses go up. But thank you to our sponsors who have done a lot to help us. And so we'll be getting the information back from the inductees, and over the summer start putting things together in September, and the committee will get together organizing it, and look forward to an exciting reunion weekend. That's a nice part about when we do our reunion, when we do our Hall of Fame, it's usually around reunion time. So we get a chance of some of the other people in town to come in and watch it as well.
Absolutely. And one more thing before we sign off that I want to note with this class especially, it seems like, you know, you go to the 70s, the 80s, and the early 2000s, like there's generations of talent that keep coming in. So it seems like that the amount of talent that continues to come in and decade out, it really shows a testament to the kind of athletic prowess Norwood tends to build and the pride and tradition that Norwood has in terms of their sports community. And I'm sure you would agree that it's encouraging to see that that continues year in.
Yeah, you know, we have about 150 athletes and coaches and teams that are presently in the Hall of Fame. We would think about this since we started back in 2007. I think we've probably inducted 90. This typical class of what we have is 6 athletes. So, you know, that's a pretty elite group. And, you know, Norwood High will be coming up, you know, in 5-6 years on their 100th anniversary. So if you got 150 over 100 years, you know, that's a very elite group. And anybody who's a member of the Norwood High Athletic Hall of Fame, they should be honored and proud as we are to be able to select them and pick them.
Well, Brian, thank you for coming into the studio today. And again, congratulations to the Hall of Fame class of 2020. And thank you all for watching. Have a great day.